What's going on, everyone? We had a crazy weekend of fights last week. Same thing's happening this week. PFL just finished, Bellator tonight, UFC tomorrow. And, when we look back at the UFC card last week, Yuri Prochazka, I mean, he did what he had to do. I think Dominic Reyes, he was still the underdog, so we knew that going into it. But at the same time, when you look at some of those moments where he just need to keep his hands up early on, he took a lot of blows. I think that when a fighter keeps his hands down like that and tries to just eat the punches, I think that's a little bit disrespect to the other fighter, because when you look at the way Yuri started landing as the fight went on, it just got more powerful, recurring broken nose, and then boom, the elbow heard around the world, all over the place. You name the social media platform, it's on there. And so I think he set the tone for his career. People are basically throwing Rakic to the dogs right now and saying that Yuri deserves the shot. My opinion, let these two wonderful old timers in Glover Teixeira and Jan Blachowicz fight and have these two fight for that opportunity. I think that there's an argument for both sides. A lot of the recency bias on Rakic against his Thiago Santos fight. But at the same time, Yuri's only fought two guys, really good guys. No questions there. But I think that there is an opportunity for two of your biggest light heavyweight contenders in a division that seems fairly depleted to at least build up to a title shot against the winner of the Jan and Glover fight. Again, my most anticipated fight of the year. Going into this weekend, first things first with UFC Vegas 26, pretty bad news with, Ryan Benoit and Felipe Lins. Felipe Lins didn't even show up for the weigh-in. So what does that mean? We lose the Big Ben Rothwell prelim main event, which absolutely sucks. I love watching the guy fight, talk. He's just been around, done everything. I had a big spiel ready to go about him. And when you look at the way his career has gone, it's like, other than the Cain Velasquez's and the Andrei Arlovskis of the world, I mean, this guy's just seen it all, done it all. And, I think for him to be able to prepare for a fight camp, put in all that work, and for a man not to show up to the weigh-ins, I can only imagine how furious Big Ben Rothwell is right now. And my heart goes out to him because I know he's probably put in that work. And then the next one is Ryan Benoit. That's a kid that I've absolutely loved watching fight. He always brings a good competitive fight to whoever he's fighting. Close decision losses is kind of his MO. But, poor kid was basically fainting on the stage there. And the fact that we were even letting him weigh in was a questionable thing in the first place. I'm not trying to just say it's a specific NCSC type of situation, or is it on the team or anything like that. I'm just thinking that if you're cutting weight for a specific event, if that's how it's going with so many people doing, there's just something extra is going wrong, and that needs to be addressed. Michael Chandler had a very good comment on this and saying that, it should be up to the fighters a little bit, and even the teams, because there needs to be discipline. There needs to be an aspect of just, how long does it take you to get down to that weight? Because, if you're basically procrastinating, I don't want to use that word, but, if you're basically cutting that last few pounds and it looks like that, chances are you're probably walking around at a certain weight where, with how your weight plan goals are going, it's just not adding up there. And it sucks to lose that fight, because Zaruk Adashev had an incredible fight against Mudair Jisoo, which I thought was, one of the better fights to just see some up-and-comers coming out of Asia, taking the UFC by storm. That was a beautiful fight for both those guys. And Adashev had a great chance against Ryan Benoit to kind of right the ship. And unfortunately, we lost that fight too. So two big fights gone. The other big piece of news is that Diego Ferreira weighed in at 160.5 for his lightweight bout against Gregor Gillespie. So, I mean, we know what kind of happens there. He's going to lose 30% of that purse to Gregor, and good for him because he's missed a few fights over the last year. So that's going to be nice. But, we'll get into that fight a bit more detail. And kicking off the card, we got a guy, who's kind of seen it all, done it all, in Christian Aguilera, and he's taking on UFC newcomer Carlston Harris. Now, these are two guys that, in doing research, very limited tape on Carlston Harris, but like when you look at it, he loves the arms chokes. He's got a lot of, he's got Darces under his belt. Actually, the Darce choke is what he landed on UAE Warriors, which was Dana White's Looking for a Fighter series. And I thought that was phenomenal for him because it looked like such a clean finish. He went 3-0 after losing his Brave FC title. So, the kid that we don't really see much of, Shudo Brazil, XFC, Brave FC champion, UAE Warriors. So, he's kind of seen it all, very little bits and pieces, across the world, and now gets the opportunity to do it in the UFC. when we look at Christian Aguilera, just from, a starting point, I feel like he's kind of that more American bred, great boxer, LFA experience, CFFC experience. When you look at his 1-1 record in the UFC, it's like you go from Ivy, where footwork was perfect, landed so clean. Guy's got 11 KOs on his record. So we know what he brings to the table. And so I think that in the Sean Brady fight, you basically took on what I believe is a top 5 to a top 10 fighter within the year, if not, 6 months, because Sean Brady, when he fights, you can just see how good he is, right? Times your leg kicks for his takedowns, lines up your jab for his much more powerful hooks and things like that. So that's the one area where I really did like Christian Aguilera in that fight was, the boxing skills were obvious because he was landing. And I think that there were a few shots that actually caught Sean Brady by surprise because it kind of, stumbled him just a little bit there. And that's what takes me into a questionable situation with a guy like Carlston Harris, who, a lot of people are going to wonder what kind of competition is he face, things like that. But, both these guys love that overhead right. Carlston Harris sets it up with the jab, and he kind of throws it a bit lazy. Whereas with a guy like Christian Aguilera, I feel like the boxing's a bit more tighter. I don't think he's going to get caught so much with these looping strikes, things like that. I think if Carlston comes in a bit more crisp and uses that distance, uses that length to keep him at bay and then swing those punches in, he has a chance. We've seen Christian Aguilera get taken down by knockouts in the past. I think it's 4 of his losses are actually via KOs. And so, the chin opportunity is there. It's just, I don't think Christian Aguilera, especially in the first round, is a guy that you can be that sloppy with, because even with Sean Brady, he has that kind of finishing move with the guillotine. That's how he got his win against Christian. And so in this case, I'm thinking to myself, you have a pretty good clinch game up against the fence. You're able to get guys into chokes from standing positions and drag him to the ground. That's where I'm seeing Carlston Harris have a lot of success. Use the kicks, use the calf kicks, body shots, slow the guy down, take away that power. Because I think the moment Christian Aguilera loses the power in his strikes, it's really kind of Carlston's, opportunity there to take the fight where he wants. And now it's going to come down to strength, cardio, things like that. And that's where I actually think Christian Aguilera, at least in the early parts of the round, from a strength perspective, should have a huge advantage. And in this case, with the secret power that Carlston Harris is bringing and the good striking, I just think that it's going to be nice to see how good that fares against what we would consider very crisp MMA boxing in a fighter like Christian Aguilera. And when you look at their recent fights, we kind of broke down Carlston Harris a bit better, but 1-1, Sean Brady, Ivy was the debut coming out of some really good fights on the regional scene for Christian Aguilera. So that's where I'm actually really enjoying this fight, because I think it's 2 guys who kind of 2 different types of regional scene perspectives, despite Carlston Harris literally being global. I think that's what's going to separate these 2 going into this. We'll take a look at the lines in a bit, but I really do think that some kind of an under is an opportunity here, because Christian Aguilera does have the power, and I think when he finds his timing, finds his reach, he's able to kind of dictate that type of style of fight. But when you look at Carlston, when he smells blood, he's really good at getting up against the fence, working in submissions. And like I said, he's dropped. There's 2 guys you've been able to see in terms of, video footage, that he just throws that jab and then just comes over with that overhand right, and guys are out. They're falling backwards like they're taking the Nestea plunge. So for me, I like the exciting aspect of this. It's just really hard to gauge who's going to have that massive advantage, but I do think that from the length perspective, distance striking, clinching, Carlston should have a bit of advantage, but I don't know, experience, boxing, and just overall, I think, competition, you'd have to give the edge to Christian Aguilera. So let's take a quick look at the lines. Like I said, the under and, not go the distance, things like that are obviously in play here, but whoa, yeah. So, Christian Aguilera and Harris opened up as basically minus 15, even money across the board here. But this is significant line movement. And so when you're looking at Carlston Harris, some guys are giving it to you at minus 170, with Christian Aguilera getting it at plus 145. I can't even say my words because I'm so shocked by this. That's significant jump when you think about just overall experience, what people might have seen. Maybe the one YouTube video that's out right now is what everybody's looking at. Now they're going and, pounding on Carlston Harris because his finishes have just been so clean and beautiful. But, do not count out a guy like Christian Aguilera, despite the chin in 4 of his fights. The guy's a gamer. He's been able to just drop fighters himself. And I think that if Carlston Harris is not careful in the first 2 rounds, especially if he can't tire him out, work those legs, and dictate that kind of pace where, towards the later part of the rounds, he's able to kind of maybe lock something up and get a finish or even steal a decision or a very close one. Because, I'm actually quite surprised by these lines. I think that Carlston Harris does have an opportunity here to surprise a few folks, but the fact that Christian Aguilera is an underdog tells me that it's not a surprise at all.